Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. Today, we've got a very special guest. We've got Coulson Kunz here from BYU Uniform Tracker. If you're on Twitter or Instagram, you got to follow him. His account, he posts lots of great stuff, updates on BYU uniforms, the field. He shares some historical stuff and even stats, which we'll talk about all that, but it's great stuff. So, you got to go check Coulson out. But also, while you're here, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. It all helps us get out there in front of more viewers. And so, Coulson, I really appreciate you hopping on with me. This is really cool to have you. I love your account. It's one that I love following. I'm very passionate about BYU and their uniforms and their look. And actually, before I ask you anything else, are you Team Navy or Team Royal?
Oh, man. I try to play both sides with, I got a lot of friends from Twitter that are like, oh, man, it's Royal or nothing. Or then, the smaller minority that's like, Navy's got to stay. I think, honestly, I'm good. I like both. I don't think they should ever be combined into a football uniform ever. But I'm good for 2-3 times a year wearing Navy. That's fine with me. But majority, you got to be Royal.
So I didn't mean to get you with the gotcha question right off the bat.
Everyone's gonna turn off the video now.
Yeah, this is only hard-hitting journalism here, so you got to watch out. But no, so really before we get into anything, let us know how did you come to start this account? What was kind of the genesis of you putting all this together?
Yeah, so kind of some context, backstory. I have been drawing, designing, mostly by hand, like football and basketball, baseball jerseys, since I was in elementary school. So I just make up some random stuff oh, I'm going to make a BYU jersey, right? And so I actually in elementary school had to send a letter to a business, someone that you look up to or aspire to, follow in their footsteps. And I actually wrote to Tom Holmoe and sent him my little jerseys that I had made. And he wrote me a card back and he was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Telling me about how they got to go through Nike and all this stuff. And I had put a Navy helmet and Navy jersey, Navy pants, way back in the day. But started with that. And then during COVID, through Twitter, I followed. There's other uniform trackers that kind of inspired me, Gator Unis. I don't know if probably some people have seen him. So Brock runs for Florida. There's Ted doing Purdue, Clint for Auburn, all my, friends who are out there doing that. And they actually, I was following kind of their page. I'm like, well, this doesn't seem too hard, right? I think the hardest part in my head was just actually making the stuff, the resources to do that. So it started just by me pen and paper, going through Kalani's to talk, okay, they wore this and they won and lost. So started with that. And then, as I acquired more resources and time to get into the, Adobe apps, and it all just kind of escalated from there. But I think 2020, just sitting around, having so much time at home was the catalyst and helped me to actually make it happen. It was towards the end of the football season though too. So it was just a combination of a lot of different things and all just culminating with this now.
That's cool. Yeah. So all this stuff takes, I don't know. I mean, I imagine the hard part was getting started, but now that you have a lot of the templates, it's just a matter of updating and doing that. But just getting all the information accurate has got to be very time consuming, because I did a video earlier this summer going through all the BYU uniforms over the years. And I referred to a few articles and things, but even then I had to check and cross check. And I was, looking up games and making sure I had the exact right game, and like looking at, different images and stuff to track everything to make sure that it was right. And eventually that's how I stumbled upon your account, and I was relying on that to make sure that and I actually used it and went back and made some corrections to some things that I had. And so it just took a lot of time to get all that. So what is your method with that?
Actually, that's the same thing that I did. My brother, Jameson, shout out Jameson. He actually helped me at the very beginning phases of this. Like, we had to still use Google Sheets for it, and a lot of it I just would go off memory. Like, oh, I remember them wearing this, and then I would obviously have to go fact check myself. But went from pen and paper to Google Sheets, and then fact checking, looking back, okay, they actually wore this, or, oh shoot, like I forgot it was this instead. And I've, had my fair share of like people correcting me too, even afterwards. I'm like, oh dang, like I should have looked over that a second time. But probably 60-70% was like, okay, I remember the game, they wore this. And the rest was, if I missed stuff from my mission, I'd have to go back and look at it. And just from there, putting it all into sheets and making it organized and easy to look at and update. And then, the templates is just, swapping the uniforms out and making sure I got the right record before I post it. So now it's a lot easier than it was.
So now you have a big database of all the uniforms, when they were worn, and how far back does that go?
Currently, it's going back to 1999.
Nice. Do you plan on taking it even further back, or?
Hopefully I need some help it's impossible to find pictures or videos, just through Google searches. So I gotta get some insider help from BYU on that one, but I'll go back as far as I can. And, basketball is the hardest one though. Basketball much harder than football to track by far, but eventually try to go back as far as possible.
Love it. I love it. So my channel, when I originally started doing YouTube, was my buddy and I, we'd sit around, he was my neighbor at the time. We would, the kids were out in the yard playing or whatever, and we just sit there chat, and we were always talking about uniforms and debating and stuff. And so I was like, let's start a channel. We're trying to start it together, couldn't connect. So I just went for it. And then just found myself talking more and more about BYU and college football, that I ultimately went this way. But I still love to have videos talking about uniforms and jumping into that. So I love all this stuff. And your account's very popular. Obviously, there's other fans that are really passionate about this. I see the debates all the time about, I saw one somewhat recently about someone who posted, I really just want to see the traditional look. We need like the white helmet, the royal blue, you got the white, blue, white combo, or white, blue for the away, or all whites, like those three. And personally, those are my three favorites. Like that's what I love to see most. I like a lot of the alternates, but it seems like when you use the alternates more than you use the original look, that's where I starts losing me. So I don't mind mixing in some of these other looks, but I really love the classic look. I want to see that more, and that's where I come down. Do you have favorite uniforms?
Yes, for different reasons. I think, like, obviously the white royal white, like, hard to beat that. I think Billy Nixon, obviously not equipment director anymore, but him and Josh now have done, a really good job, like, kind of bringing BYU's brand further, like expanding it. And right, I mean, more and more it's like, oh, the players want to wear this. It wants to, be flashy, want to have different helmets, which I think is super cool. And if I remember right, during a BYU Sports Nation interview on one of the first days of fall camp, Josh actually said there'd be a different uniform combo for every game this year too. And last year was the first time that had ever happened. So I think my personal opinion, I think, the white royal for road games, white royal white for home games. Like, I think maybe 2-3 times each, get like 6 or 7 between those, and then kind of branching off from there. Royal helmet a couple times, the all white with the white face mask. Kind of majority for the traditional, and then getting a couple games in with the alternates, I think, is my personal preference. But I also like seeing something different every game too. It's kind of unique.
Yeah, because we had some really cool alternates and some cool helmets and things that they did last year, but it almost took away from it because it was too much. Like, it didn't feel special anymore because it was always another thing, like the airbrushed ones with the mountains and the cougar and
Yeah, those are
I
impressive.
mean, they were really cool, and I liked incorporating the sailor hat cougar
Oh,
on the bowl game. It was the bowl
yeah.
game, right? Logo on there, and I'd like to see that on like a royal helmet too at some
Yeah.
point. But
Yeah.
do you have any notion as to whether we're going to see a 90s throwback? I feel like there's some buzz about that earlier in the summer. Are we going to see that with like the drop shadow?
I hope so. I couldn't tell you for sure, just because obviously I'm not the one with the information. If Josh ever sees this, I hope so. I thought it would have been perfect for the ASU game in 2021. And the coaches all had it was like the honoring the 1996 team. I thought that would have been a perfect time to bring it out. But I think at some point, yes. I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, 3 years. I have no idea. But I hope and think yes, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't do it this year, you'd think next time K-State is on our schedule.
That would actually 20 maybe next season. Then I don't know. Hopefully we get K-State. That would be if we got them at home, be perfect. BYU wearing the Royal 1996 jersey. That actually would be perfect timing. But
or wear them for the Texas game against Sark.
Yeah, kind of like a deja vu for him.
Maybe getting his head a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any other looks, maybe throwbacks or otherwise, that you'd like to see them bring back, or maybe other looks that they haven't quite explored yet that you'd like them to experiment with?
I definitely want the actually from this game,
Yes.
Washington in 2019. I want to see, maybe like a royal helmet with the block Y, or bring back that combo entirely. Although the game wasn't pretty itself, but the uniforms were beautiful. Like I would definitely want to see that. I at first wasn't really interested in the Sailor Coup being on a helmet, but I think it would look great, like you said, on royal or on white. That for sure I hope to see this year. Like from the Baylor game, it was on the back of the helmet. Now I want to see it on the side again. But
Yeah, that one seemed like an afterthought. Like they saw, oh, Baylor's doing this. This
yeah,
could be fun.
yeah.
And when I saw that, I thought, well, maybe we could turn that into a tradition where if we're going to play each other. So I thought maybe the next year we would see both teams with the sailor hat, and then we could kind of make that a thing. And they didn't do it. So, but that would be cool, to incorporate that in special occasions. Like I wouldn't want to see it all the time, but yeah, the block letter Y, that was a terrible game, so I don't know if they're bringing those back.
give me a royal helmet and I'm down.
That was a great look, and I don't know for sure. I remember watching it feeling like the royal was even then was a little bit lighter. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely think it was a little bit different than like side by side. I keep trying to compare this like to make my graphics right. I'm pretty sure it was a little bit lighter shade.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really slick, and I love the Stretch Y logo, but that other one's pretty good too.
Yeah. I think if anything, BYU would just do helmet decal adjustments. I don't think anytime outside of like 1996 jersey itself or like 98, something like that. Like I don't really see BYU ever switching from the actual 3 stripes on the pants and the jersey. But helmet, like you could do anything. Would they? Not sure, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. So you've been very diplomatic so far. Are there any looks that they currently throw into the rotation over the last few years that you'd like to ditch, that you would not like to see them wear again?
Oh man. Unfortunately, yes. And that was just the nickel face mask on the Navy helmet. Um, it was worn against Idaho State. Um, I mean, navy white, not bad by itself. I'm not really a fan of the nickel on navy. It looks a little bit better on royal, but even on royal, I think royal face mask and white face mask look way better. So nickel face mask might have to be the one that I'd have to get rid of.
The one thing, okay.
Yeah.
See, and I am not as big a fan. So, like I said, I prefer the white helmet, but the royal I think looks cool. I just prefer the other look more, and so I can live with that. I'm not a big fan of the navy helmet though. That's where you
Oh
start
yeah.
losing me. It's a little too much. I don't know. Especially I mean, I have you to blame, I guess, now that I know you sent that to Tom Holmoe, the all navy.
Yeah, little like 10-year-old me. Yeah.
It's your fault, but how about basketball? Because you mentioned something at the top of the video. We should never add Royal and Navy together, but the new uniforms, which I generally really like, they do just that.
Yeah, I think I'm speaking of it more in like football because they're individual pieces. Like if you were to do it in football, you'd have to add like navy pants with a royal jersey, and that doesn't work. But even like navy jersey with royal stripes, still not going to work. But the basketball team did it. They have like white trim going around. Like all the women's teams usually have royal and navy on the same jersey, and I think they can pull it off pretty well. I just don't think it works for football. And so many people have tried like, oh, here's what it would look like. I don't think that would work. But basketball, I was pleasantly surprised with the Navy basketball jerseys. I really like those.
Yeah, no, and I generally really like the look, and like you said, I think it does work. The two color combination, it doesn't. I think it looks good. I just think the royal with the white is so clean
Yeah.
that for me, I'm just, why are we? It feels like you're trying to do too much. Like you don't have to, but fortunately, it does work. I really like the current look, so it's good for me.
Yeah.
But so now BYU starts the Big 12. We're going in. There's a lot of new looks. How does BYU's look uniform stack up against the rest of the Big 12?
I've seen a couple different like Big 12 media outlets or a couple Twitter pages kind of try to rank these, and I think usually BYU's in the top half. I think I personally definitely have them in the top 5. I mean, you might have Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma, right? The classics. But BYU shouldn't be far behind because everyone else kind of has changed or rebranded in the last 10, 15 years. Baylor switched their, old gold to more of a yellow gold. TCU has completely changed. Those are pretty cool uniforms, but very out there. Texas Tech has changed a couple times. They got a lot of different options. I don't really like UCF's unis as much as the old ones. So I think, top 5 in my opinion to have BYU stacked up.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a video that I've been waiting for. I was waiting for Cincinnati to release their uniform so I could have it, official, but they only released the black one, so I haven't seen the white. I feel like it's still incomplete, but before the season starts, I guess if there's nothing, I'll just have to roll with what I have. But
that's true.
Spoiler. So you named my top 4 right there, which it's not much of a spoiler because I already did a previous video on Big 12 prior to BYU joining. But Texas, OU, Kansas State, and they're just really clean, classic looks. And I think BYU's right there with those. It's hard to beat Texas.
Yeah.
As much as I love to hate on Texas, but those are just super classic and just clean, just the whole way through. But and I guess that's kind of where I fall. Is like I'd rather BYU be more like Texas with their uniform than acting like Baylor or West Virginia, where you got all these different color combos. But I know we're a Nike school, and having all those looks makes money. So
is Baylor and West Virginia Nike schools, TCU, but I can see where you're coming from for sure.
But I mean, it's fine. I've got no major complaint. I think all the variations are really cool. So that's the good news. It's just I want to see more of the classic in there.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, it's all really good stuff. I want to pull up real quick and share just so people can see again. And you got your handle right there, so people can look you up real easily. I actually went with the Instagram because we can see a little bit more of your page. But if you haven't gone to check it, if you haven't already subscribed, go right now, go check it out. And there's all sorts of good stuff. I love a recent post. Maybe was it today even? You update on player numbers, and we can see different matchups with us against Big 12 teams and how we performed and what uniforms we wore. I love that. So it's just really cool way to track latest news with the uniforms and to go back and track and see how we did in each of these, and you got great stats along with it. In doing this, have you gotten any insights through the stats on like what uniforms we perform best with, or anything else as you've collected all this information?
Yeah, it's kind of a curse to know this stuff, but there's the people are very loud on social media, like, oh, Royal only, right? Like, yeah, I get it. There's not like enough stats to prove that like Royal performs better than Navy, which it doesn't, by the way. Between like, obviously Royal's been worn way less now that it's starting to be worn more, but between like 2014 to 2018 ish, like especially 2017, I mean, you just got loss after loss after loss in Royal, which I mean isn't great, but the jerseys still look good. We still want to see them. But what was really interesting is that the all white, I mean, outside of that Coastal Carolina game, the all white with the Royal face mask is undefeated. Now you got it split up with the white face mask too, which was worn at Boise State. That's undefeated. So the nickel or the gray, I guess, is what it was in 2020. I mean, that is a pretty solid combination to get a win in. So, I mean, there's quite a few things that have contributed. Obviously, playing home games helps, and Navy has a better track record because it's worn more at home or has been in the past. So a lot of different things, and you'll see that come up in my tweets and posts for this upcoming season. You kind of see how BYU's performed in Royal, and I'll share some more of that. But a lot of really interesting stuff that is in the history. So,
and when do you get news on any changes or what the uniform is going to be that week? Do you just follow the same accounts we do and you just see that, or do you have friends that give you any inside tips?
More often than not or in the past at least, I've been lucky to have good friends and reliable sources on some of this stuff. And sometimes, right, I mean, obviously we heard what happened with the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame originally had told BYU they were going to wear white, or BYU was going to wear white, and then Notre Dame releases their uniform over the summer, and it's like white, and BYU is like, oh, well, I guess we got to wear something different. So I don't know what I think the original plan was, like a white Royal white, if I remember right, and that had to change. I mean, things change, but on occasion I am pretty lucky to have inside info. Not always, and we'll see what happens this year. But other than that, I just follow the same page as everyone else does.
So you just get it, and then you just have to
just gotta be quick with it. Yeah.
Well, cool. Very good. Well, this is really cool stuff, and I have a lot of fun with it. I love seeing all that, and and tracking it, and it's good to go back. It's fun, like on that the some of those we were just looking at, go back and see some of the old ones and remember those games. So, but there, I can't talk to another BYU fan without addressing the realignment from the summer. It's been crazy. So, what has been your take on all that, and how everything's shaken out? And with the new schools coming, we'll be back in conference with Utah. What do you make of all that?
Man, honestly, my gut reaction was I just really wanted Utah to get left for the Mountain West. Or independent. That would have been, hilarious. Obviously, Utah does bring value to the Big 12, which is unfortunate to admit. But I thought it would have been hilarious for them not to get in. I'm surprised that it took them as long as it did. After everything started happening, like I thought for sure, it would have gone down sooner. But I'm excited. I think it'll be, obviously everyone wants to have Utah BYU play every year, which I think will be a big benefit because it's going to, without a doubt, be the best rivalry in the new Big 12 after Texas and Oklahoma leave. I'm excited for it. I'm glad that BYU was on the inside. There's nothing worse than, in the past being on the outside and being like, oh man, we got to get in, right? Like I feel for, like SMU, Memphis, Boise State, like all these guys that are, wanting to get in because that's where BYU's been in for a while. But overall, pleased with how everything turned out as far as Big 12 and BYU is concerned.
Yeah, I empathize with all those schools that feel like they're the next one, the first one out, because that felt like it was BYU forever. So I empathize with them. I love the rivalry with Boise State. So in some ways that would have been a lot of fun to have them in conference. But I think when you have the chance to have those Power 5 schools, coming from the Pac, it really bolsters the conference. And now BYU is not really on an island anymore. And should make for some good rivalries, and very interested to see how it all plays out. And the good news is BYU still has a better looking uniform than all those schools. So.
That's true. Utah's are horrendous outside of the double block U or interlocking U and like the Rose Bowl game. Other than that, garbage.
Yeah, I like that too. Although there's other versions of throwbacks that I think they could do, that incorporating that logo that they could do that are even more simple, that I think I'd really like. The only problem is I saw some graphic somewhere that had that interlocking U logo. It was like the Big 12, the new Big 12, and on there was Houston. And I did a double take. I was like, oh, Utah's on there twice, and I was like, oh, they're pretty similar. So. That'll be interesting to see. Maybe that deters them from going that way, but they definitely should, because they have some good material if they ever pull from it. But anyway, well, great. I don't want to end on a note talking about Utah. So again, go check out BYU Uniform Tracker on the socials, and let us know where you're at. You're on Instagram, Twitter. Where else can?
For now, Instagram and Twitter. I have not ventured into Facebook because I'm not brave enough.
All right. Well, you got his handle there, and go like and follow, and you can stay up to date with all the uniform combos as we go throughout the season, and any other news that comes our way. And Coulson, it was really great having you. I look forward to following and seeing what else you got coming for us. So thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Trevor. One last thing. I got to ask you a question. What's your prediction for BYU's record this season?
I just did a video on this. You could say I'm a pessimist, but I want to keep my expectations realistic. Instead of, I always say I'm going to each year, and then as soon as the season starts, I let my expectations, go out of control. So I think 5 or 6 games. And so I'm right there at the 5.5. I think 6 is totally doable. I believe anything from 4 to maybe 8 wins, with the way some of these matchups could go. I just, again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but again, these are tough teams. And I think if BYU at least hangs in some of these tougher games, that, that's what you want to see that first year. So even if we don't make a bowl game, which would be really disappointing, I wouldn't see it as a complete loss if we were hanging in there and, sticking with these other teams. But I just get worried later in the season as we wear down and, see if our depth is there and if we're able to stay healthy. Two issues that have really plagued us in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad to hear it because I've met, obviously, we all know people that are like, oh, we're running the table, which we're not. But I think 7 wins would be like tops in my head. And I think making a bowl game would be a successful year, but would not doubt winning only 4 or 5. But should be a fun season either way.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be games. I mean, that's the thing. I look at it, I'm like, you know what? Who knows what TCU is? Who knows what Oklahoma is? And those are games, maybe we come out and win. But also, we could go to West Virginia and lose that.
Yeah.
And so,
State, yeah.
I mean, we should win that. And, unfortunately, but in terms of our win schedule, fortunately, the Iowa State, situation makes that game even more favorable for BYU. But that they're still going to be a capable team. It is in Provo, but so it's tough to say. But yeah, I think we'd be right in there, 5 or 6, and it'll really come down to those last few games. I think if we can pull out some upsets over teams that we're not favored against.
Very true. Very true.
Anyway, we will see, but I'm excited nonetheless. I'm just excited to watch Big 12 football and watch BYU, and I have high hopes in Keaton Slovis. I was really excited that he's come back. I have hopes that he can show us flashes of what we've seen in the past, but I'm also realizing we got to see it first. So, but yeah, really excited. But thanks again for coming on, and we'll be following you closely throughout the season. And go Cougs!
Absolutely, thanks, Trevor. Go Cougs!